Hi, Christy.
Hi, Anne Marie. How are you?
Good to see you. I'm good.
Yeah, I wish I could
uh,
see you in person.
I know it's weird being on all of these virtual calls with people, but I really value the chance to connect.
Definitely. I actually really wanted to talk to you about connection.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I've been having a hard time talking about everything that's been going on.
Mhm.
My family and even my friends, we're all in different circumstances. Some of us get to stay home and some of us just can't, whether it's our job or like having to go to the store. It's just it's hard, and I think that it's kind of made me see how I can't relate to a lot of people that have to go outside, and even my family's been trying to help me so I don't have to go outside because I have an infant daughter, and they don't want me to get sick or to get sick, so they've been helping me in that way, but I feel very privileged as well.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure that I'm being supportive when I am talking to others, but also trying to help them ease their panic, because I think that it's a scary time, and frankly, I just need help talking to others about it.
Yeah, well, and it's really hard because we're trying to process what we're going through as well at the same
Hmm.
time. So, while you're listening to others, you're also trying to talk through your own story, and then you end up talking
Right.
and you're not asking questions, and that can be really hard.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely don't think I'm asking enough questions.
Yeah. So when you say that you're struggling with how to be there for people or how to comfort people, is that kind of the core of it? Is like how to be a good listener with people?
With all the media and how much we just have to be online now, it's getting hard to filter out what to and what not to panic about. And even though like panicking is very valid, this is a very scary time. I think that it's been hard to try to like just be supportive and that too, because I'm trying not to panic. It's just difficult.
Yeah, well, and I think part of it too is whenever I'm thinking about listening and being there for others, I think the first thing I think about is how do I change the questions in my head
Mm,
about why I'm in this conversation. So, oftentimes you might be processing what they're saying, but one of the first questions I ask myself is, what does this person need from me right now?
mm,
And do they need to hear that they're not alone? In which case, yeah, maybe it might be good to share a story after you get all the details about theirs. But sometimes it's just, questions are really valuable to help people know what to say, because sometimes you don't
yeah.
even know, or you might not even feel comfortable saying things out loud, all the things that are in your head. But it's important to say things out loud because it's important for healing, and relationship building and all of that connection piece that you mentioned. So I usually
Yeah.
start by changing the question in my head. And then after that, I try to also make sure I have their story straight. Um, because my definition of panic, or what I find scary,
Yeah.
may be totally different than what they find scary. And I find it more comforting to focus less on the fear, but instead talk about the sources of that fear and the kinds of experiences that people are having or how they're seeing the world. So I
Mm.
usually try to get more examples of what people are experiencing and how they see the world.
What kind of questions do you suggest I ask? Because I'm very used to being really relatable instead of like asking questions, which now I'm realizing I totally need to do more of. Um, but what kind of questions would you think that I should ask others? It's just so funny to me, like having to ask about asking questions.
No, I think it's such a great thing, because when we think about speaking, we don't usually include listening in that, but it totally is.
Mm,
And listening begins
yeah.
with questions, and that's how you can also build that connection. Yeah, I guess my rules for questions is before I ask a question, I always make sure that I show that I'm validating someone. So you have to listen very deeply in order to make sure that you validate. And by that, I mean, even just like the little reactions that you have, you know, the smiles, the laughs, the, oh, you know, the little reactions,
Yeah.
saying like, oh, that's super scary. Oh, you know, or I can see why that's scary. Or, you know, those are statements, not questions, but they serve the purpose of validating the story, because someone has just offered you their life experience. They've offered you their perspective. And so it's kind of a way of saying thank you. And then I think another way of showing respect for people's you know, stories and speaking is then making sure you have the story right. So asking the clarifying questions. So you know, do you go outside much? Like, you know, when you feel panicky, is it because like you're not going outside that much, or do you go outside a lot and it always feels that way? Sometimes giving people some options too can be a useful way of wording a question, like, oh, is it this or is it this? Again, you don't want to overwhelm the speaker. You don't want to ask them questions that they can't answer, or that they don't even want to think about. Like, how are you going to solve that panic? And, oh, I don't want to deal with that.
I don't know the answer to that. No.
Yeah. So again, like, you don't want to put them on the spot. You want to, that's not the purpose of questions. The purpose of questions is to draw out more of their stories, and then stopping when it feels like they're too on the spot. And that's when then I jump in and add a little bit more of my story and my experience, but I stay on them for a little while. You know, balancing that is really important and key. Hopefully that helps. You know, I think the first step is like the changing your mindset about questions, and then it's that validation and clarification and the balance between your story and their story. But with panic, it's a hard one. You know, it's so emotional, and everyone's experience is so different. And so I think the part of the point is just hearing people and accepting the panic, and knowing that you don't have to solve it, but you can be there for them, because you are wonderful and kind, and you're a great helper, and you're there for people.
Thank you.
You know, you're not going to solve this, and that's not what people are looking for.
That's a good point. And I think that that's probably my form of trying to take control of the situation too. It's like, how can I support? Because I'm privileged in that way, and I don't know. But thank you. That's actually really helpful. And I'm gonna let you know how it goes. I have a lot of thinking to do. What kind of questions to ask?
Yes. Well, I know it's going to be great because you have it in your head. And you have the heart and the desire to learn. I think it's hard to ask questions when we don't genuinely want to learn from people, but as long as you genuinely want to know more, then the questions will come. So
okay.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon though.
Bye. Yeah. Bye.